Hi everybody, welcome back to Fish the Mark. Appreciate you joining in and taking a look at the channel today. Today's video is going to be about fishing Spring Lake in Tazewell County in Illinois. Had a pretty good trip there the second week of March of 2022. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit about what I learned and how I did there and what I caught the fish on. Before we jump into that, I thought it would be helpful if I shared a little bit about Spring Lake and what Spring Lake is and where it is and those kind of things. So specifically, I was fishing Spring Lake North when I went there. Spring Lake is southwest of Pekin, Illinois. So up here is Peoria, Pekin, Spring Lake's down here. It's kind of due west of Manitou. Really, to get there from Pekin, if you take Manitou Blacktop out of town, that's this road here, and then you can take this Spring Lake road and it'll take you right to both Spring Lake North and Spring Lake South. Will take you there. Spring Lake is a lake that's really got some pretty good bass fishing in it, as well as other fishing as well. It's got a lot of good fishing in it, honestly. I will put this link right here into the comment section so that you can take a look and read the data yourselves. You can see some of the stocking information on what they've been stocking there, and you can see what where they've got the fishing rated on the lake. So catfish and crappie and bass, muskie. We've got a real strong crappie population. The bass, I think, is really good. I think good is an understatement for the bass population there in the fishing. And then they've been working really hard to improve the muskie fishing in that lake as well. So you see that it's excellent as well. Does mean though that there are a lot of toothy critters that'll eat your lure or take your lure. So you might want to bring some extra lures there because you may lose them to the toothy critters when you're there. Kind of a couple specific areas of Spring Lake that I think are important on the data here. One of them is it is a shallow lake. The average depth is 2.9 feet. I know of a few spots on Spring Lake North where it's 7-8 feet. But most of the lake is 1 to 2 feet. And so it is interesting to get around. It's a 25 horsepower limit lake. So that's the maximum gas motor that you can run on it. If you've got a bigger motor than that, you can go down and run your electronics and leave the motor on the boat, but you can't run the motor. And it is in the summertime, starting about May of each year, about 75% of the lake is covered with aquatic vegetation. So there's lily pads and weeds and all kinds of things over about 75% of the lake. I like going down in March and fishing it before the weeds really take over. You can fish it differently before the weeds take over. You can fish it with moving baits, or like crankbaits and spinnerbaits and vibrating jigs and those kind of things. When the weeds take over, it's really hard to fish with those things. You end up fishing with frogs, you end up punching through the weeds and those kind of things a lot later in the year. But early March, April, you really have kind of the whole battery of lures that are available to you. So I like going down early in the year and fishing it. This is how Spring Lake is set up. You got the north end, which is kind of a long and narrow for the majority of the lake with kind of a wider bottom section of the lake. And then this road here, this causeway, blocks the two lakes. So the water, they don't share the water. The water will overflow from north into south, but you can't get through those, right? So there's a ramp right here that can get in on the north end, or you can drive down this frontage road and fish the south end. For this particular trip, I fished the north end of the North Lake. And even at that, I fished this section up here, and I'll explain why in a minute. I went out to Navionics and took a look at the Navionics site to see if there was anything I could help you with on it. And the lake is so consistently shallow, the Navionics map just doesn't show you much. It's one of the few places that I go that the Navionics map doesn't show much. And it really takes exploring and driving around the lake to figure it out. You just don't get much off of different maps that you can buy. So when I went there, like I said, the majority of the fishing I did was up here on this extreme north end of the lake. It had been a pretty cold spring. Ice had just come off this lake about a week and a half before I went down there. And so it had been a cold spring, but it was the third day of a warming trend. And so it had been in like the low 50s the 2 days previous, and this particular day it was getting up to the high 60s. And so I really felt like the north end of the lake would have the most fish activity with the sun beating down on it. So it's supposed to be early spring, that the northern end of the lakes, the sun's coming from the south shining and getting the most direct sunlight on the north end. And so I fished the north end of the North Lake pretty exclusively on this trip. And I think by and large it paid off for me. So when I started, I fished this section here right off the bat, and it was largely still in shade. The sun hadn't quite cleared the trees and stuff that are over here, and the water was only about 49 degrees, and I didn't get a bite through there. So then I moved up to the west side in this further north section, and the water was 2 degrees warmer, and it was in sunshine, and you can tell that that section gets warmer faster than much of the rest of the lake, because there's already grass growing there. It's sparse, it's scattered out, but there is fresh green grass growing already just a few days after ice out in this section right here. And I started, when I saw the grass there, I started with a spinnerbait, and my first few catches were on a spinnerbait. Then I went to a Judder Jig by Razor Custom Tackle, which is a bladed jig, and even through a traditional jig in here a little bit. So let's go take a look at some of those fish catches that I had on this end here. Ended up with some nice fish caught up there, ended up with several fish caught. Unfortunately, I missed 2 good ones that would have made this video spectacular, but we will take what we caught there. So it was a good trip right there fishing those fish. So after a pretty good run in that section of the lake, I felt like I'd kind of hit that area pretty hard. I wanted to give it a rest. So I ended up moving down to a little bit further down the lake to the south to, if I can get my mouse to work, to this section right here. So there's a road going across. So this is just a little south of the road. Back on the east side, the sun had now moved enough over the lake that the east side was getting way more sun than the west side was. So I thought I'd try and hit this east side. and had a pretty good run of catches here, all on the Judder Jig, that I think are really some good catches to take a look at here on the Judder Jig. So after I caught those two nice ones, I'm thinking this east shoreline is really going to be turning on for me. So I decided to go back up and fish this shoreline here, which is where I started the day. And I've caught some nice fish over the years on that shoreline. So I thought maybe the sun hitting on it now will get that shoreline turned on. Sure enough, I got a hit, got a nice fish. Unfortunately, I missed him, and so we'll go ahead and take a look at that miss, because it continued to show that the Judder Jig and that warm sun was really producing.
Oh.
So after I missed that one at the side of the boat, I decided to run back up and hit this east side of the lake. Again, the sun had moved over here, so it was shining really well on here. So I decided to hit this east side of the lake one more time and make one more pass through there. And I ended up catching several more fish, some shorts, a nice one. Got a nice big one up the side of the boat and missed it too. Ended up being a really good day. You know, it worked out almost exactly how I thought the day would work out, right? I expected the north end of the lake to be the fish to be moving with the sun beating down on it. They were. I thought it'd be mostly a moving bait day. I caught the majority of the fish on either a Judder Jig, which is you know, a chatterbait type lure, or that spinnerbait. Caught a few on jigs. Most everything came off of some type of horizontal structure, right? So whether it was a dock low to the water, or whether it was some down timber, I caught a couple out of the weeds on the spinnerbait, but everything else was horizontal base structure I needed to catch them on. And so I used that horizontal structure. Really became most of the day what I was casting against. And so you know, here's the three lures that I used that day. I used this white spinnerbait. It caught the first 2 or 3 fish for me. You know, what's funny is I'm not even sure what the brand of that spinnerbait is. It doesn't have it on it. I think it might just be a Bass Pro Shops laser eye, and looking at it. And then I used this white Judder Jig. I used a 3/8 ounce white Judder Jig. And that big one that I caught off that dock was on that Judder Jig. Again, they wanted horizontal presentation, and they wanted horizontal structure to hide under. And then I caught a couple on this black jig. And one of the things I think is key about this black jig is I change the trailer depending on the water temperature. When the water temp's under, say, 60 degrees, I use a Super Chunk Junior, which doesn't have a lot of the tail doesn't flap a lot. It's actually a very low motion trailer on it. And then when the water gets above 60 degrees, I usually go to a Strike King Baby Rage Claw, and then it has a lot of action in the trailer. But I think in this colder weather, the fish aren't expecting things to swim and move as much. And I think that trailer with less action entices more fish to bite. And so I tend to use that in water under 60 degrees with the Super Chunk Junior, and then water over 60 degrees, I tend to use the Strike King trailer. So warmest the water got all day was like 54 degrees. So I stayed with that Super Chunk Junior all day. And I'll put the links in to where you can get the white Judder Jig from Razor Custom Tackle, where you can get the jig at, and where you can get the trailer that I used as well. So, but overall, it was a good day. You know, caught 11 bass in about 5 hours. I missed a couple really nice ones that would have made the video even better, but it was a good day, and I appreciate everybody coming in and taking a look at the video today. And let me know if you go fish Spring Lake, if you like fishing the north end or the south end better, and what lures early in the spring you like at Spring Lake. You know, like I said, when the weeds come in, it kind of changes what you have to fish. But before the weeds come in, what do you like to throw down there? So appreciate you coming in and joining the channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let us know what we can do to keep getting better. Thank you.